How many of you know someone suffering from Alzheimer's disease? My name is Megan Johnson, and my presentation today is on how Alzheimer's affects our brain and our memory, and how music can help us retrieve our memories. My grandmother currently has Alzheimer's, and I was curious to learn what she's going through and how this disease is affecting her brain. And 1 in 10 people over the age of 65 suffer from the disease, so chances are high that eventually this disease could directly affect you. I found many sources to help with my research, including a website called The Human Memory, which was very extensive, created by Luke Maston, the Alzheimer's Association, which is the leading nonprofit of research and funding for Alzheimer's, and a man named Dan Cohen, who is the founder of a program called Music and Memory. The human memory is a brain-wide process requiring several parts of the brain to work together. Music can help patients with Alzheimer's by boosting brain activity and eliciting emotion. Let's begin by describing the brain and explaining where our memories are stored. According to Maston, the brain is made out of 3 parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. We store procedural memories in the cerebellum, and that is something like buttoning up your coat. The cerebrum is covered by a sheet of tissue called the cerebral cortex, and that's where 90% of our neurons are located. As you can see in Figure 1, it's divided into 4 lobes. The frontal lobe is responsible for processing short-term memory and storing long-term memory. The temporal lobe forms our long-term memory, and inside the temporal lobe is where our hippocampus is located, as you can see in Figure 2, and that's where most of our memory processes take place. Now I'll try and describe different parts of the brain work together to form one memory. Think about your favorite shirt. The way your shirt feels against your skin, the color of the fabric, the function of it, all come from different areas of your brain. And then the whole image is created and work together to form one memory. Experts used to think of the brain as a filing cabinet and our memories as files. Now they think of it more as a spider's web where different threads join together to form one memory. There's 3 basic steps involving memory, and that includes encoding, memory storage, and memory retrieval. According to an article written by Shonda Dardar, encoding starts with perception and how something smells, looks, tastes, etc. These perceptions travel to the hippocampus where they're combined to form a single experience. Think of meeting a beloved pet for the first time. The way your dog or cat looked, smelled, the sounds it made are all perceived by different senses, but they come together to form one memory. Memories are then stored with the help of neurons, which are responsible for transferring the information to our brains. Once encoded, they become either a short-term memory or they're transferred to long-term memory. For example, meeting our pet. Once that's in the short-term memory, it's either lost forever or it's transferred to a long-term memory. And our brain kind of decides what's important enough to become a long-term memory. And when you're emotional, chances are higher that something can become a long-term memory. The final process, retrieval, requires us to reach into our unconscious level of our brain and bring a memory to the conscious level. Now that we've discussed memory, I'll describe how Alzheimer's disease destroys the brain and causes us to have trouble retrieving our memories. Maston explains that Alzheimer's is progressive and degenerative, and it causes cell-to-cell connections in the brain to be lost, and eventually that travels to the hippocampus. With Alzheimer's, the first to go is our short-term memory, then episodic, like when we were married, then semantic, and then procedural. Alzheimer's causes a loss of neurons and synapses are the junction between our 2 neurons, and it's how we transfer information. According to the Alzheimer's Association, abnormal structures called plaques and tangles are largely responsible for the damage done to our brain. Plaques are deposits of a protein fragment called beta amyloid, and these build up in the spaces between nerve cells in our brain. And tangles are twisted fibers of another protein called tau, and these build up inside our cells. As you can see in Figure 3, both of these proteins are active in a normal brain, but they kind of run amok in a brain with Alzheimer's disease. These plaques and tangles spread to the neurons, which causes them to stop working and eventually die, and this process eventually spreads to the hippocampus. Now I'll explain how music is thought to aid in memory recovery. Music activates different parts of the brain at once, causing the brain to work more than usual, and this aids in the retrieval of memory. According to Dr. Mosqueda, who is the director of geriatrics at the Irvine School of Medicine, she says that because music affects so many parts of the brain, it touches areas that may not be damaged by the disease and brings those pathways to the forefront. Music also generates emotions, and as we discussed, we're more likely to create memories when our emotions are high. We're also more likely to be able to retrieve memories when our emotions are high. There have been many studies involving how music aids the retrieval of memories. According to Dan Cohen, who's the founder of Music and Memory, music can benefit patients because music compounds are located throughout the brain. He states that music is preserved in the brain even if other parts have been destroyed because music is deeply embedded, and it's also cumulative over time. We hear the same song over and over again, and we create different memories with that song. His organization produced a movie where they gave a man named Henry who had had dementia for over 10 years and he couldn't communicate music from his past. Once he began listening to the music, he immediately just started to recall how he loved to sing and dance when he was younger. Another study had Alzheimer's patients sing classical hits and show tunes from popular musicals. They could recall memories and had enhanced mental performance after singing. The study showed that singing activated more than one part of the brain at once, and it caused stimulation and activated it more, and they were better able to retrieve memories. Through different studies such as these, scientists are beginning to understand why music can aid in memory retrieval. In conclusion, I have described parts of the brain, how different parts are responsible for different areas of memory, how Alzheimer's works to destroy our brain, and how music can aid in the retrieval of our memories. Perhaps you can apply this knowledge by giving a loved one with dementia music from their past and see if it helps them retrieve their own memories. Thank you.